Hmm.
All right. One of my top topics, if you're following me on Instagram, is how to improve my skin health and not have aging, wrinkly, saggy, gross skin that I see happens, but I feel like it doesn't have to happen. So I've got the master on a new perspective on improving our skin health, Amitay, and we're going to talk about how we can improve the aging process from the inside out and really dive into some key ingredients I find are unique because I swear there's an answer out there to not have this change in our skin as we age.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great conversation. I'm very glad to have this conversation with you, and can't wait to start.
Well, you are the founder of Young Goose, a popular product that we see at a lot of the, I hate the word biohacking these days, but health optimization summits and conferences and seeing it more and more. What is your why? What do you do? Why do you do it? What's your purpose, passion? Start with that.
Wow, that's big.
That's an
My
hour long.
Yeah, I have so many purposes and passions that maybe in the context of Young Goose, it is to it's for people like you and I who are on a journey, on the longevity journey.
Mhm.
And I feel that there is a real there's a real lack of I don't want to say transparency, but a real lack of truthfulness in the way skincare is being created, marketed. The business of skincare is infected with the big business ideals as much as any other business people can
Mhm.
think of.
Yeah.
And within that, my why is creating a company that really strives every day, waking up and every day strives to translate what is true and substantiated within the longevity field and translate it to skincare formulations.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's powerful because it's all about how we age. And as I turned 50 a few years ago now, and I'm at my mom's right now, who's 83, and I'm just keep sharing this on the podcast. It's not just to being a fit and healthy athlete, but being healthy in all areas for our future self. And I think watching, if you're around my age, you start to see your parents, and my dad passed away, and my mom, and seeing how she's aging, but all of her friends. And I see how they start to move and look and feel, and then all these every month someone's passing away. It's like, okay, at age 40 something, we should start taking ownership of our health now and change how we do things to be the best self in the future. And I feel that all these different ailments that happen with people, focusing on the skin health today, is so controllable because we talk about sarcopenia and loss of muscle mass, which is the biggest
Yeah.
part I see. But I dive into the why of everything. And why does that happen? Well, we're less active, we eat less protein, and we're not doing all the right things to build muscle. But what about that in our skin? I keep thinking, well, why our skin changes as we get older? What are we missing that is having that change? Loss of collagen production, elasticity, loss of hormones. So, same scenario is like, well, why don't we do something about it instead of blaming it, embrace it, and change and add in what we're missing? So, that's my
Yeah.
thought process of the why. Why does this happen? What can we do about it?
Yeah. I think there is a conversation around what's happening in your skin or aging that is driven from our cellular function in the skin. But I think there is a hint to the fact that there is something bigger happening with the rest of our body because there are two points in our aging process where we, especially women, by the way, and just because of the way that hormones are behaving as women age,
Mhm.
we see 2 points that that almost our skin health almost takes a nosedive. That's our late 30s and early to mid 50s. These are 2 points that people feel like they've aged, a decade within a year, 2 years. So that cannot happen, or it cannot happen in that kind of spurt, um, due to, something that is strictly cellular or strictly what we call extrinsic. It means like something in the environment that has to happen because we have some hormonal changes, obviously, and and really this is a conversation about the skin not being a only a barrier to the rest of our body, but a communication organ.
Hmm.
So what happened is our skin is two things. It's a communication organ inwards, definitely anything from, environmental stressors to, mycotoxins and even things like temperature and pressure. But it is also a communication organ outwards, especially when we are close to our um, um, sexual prime, to our reproductive prime. And that is because we need to communicate that we are indeed healthy and can produce healthy offspring, etc., etc., etc. So what
Mhm.
happens when we pass that prime and we become less reproductively viable is that our body kind of neglects the skin as far as a communication organ outwards. And obviously, I'm using a lot of like heuristics right now, but our goal as far as keeping a skin that is youthful, functions like a youthful skin, and looks like a youthful skin, is understanding that from a certain point, especially like late 30s, it is our job to communicate to the skin what we want it to do and how it should behave. And that is where, different modalities come in. But your body basically starts slowing down and neglecting the skin as far as nutrients, as far as anything really, as far as hormones, anything. And then now it's our job basically to, yeah.
So what's changing at a cellular level that causes the skin to wrinkle or to get more saggy under eyes
Yeah.
and all that?
So hormonally, the of basically our body relies on hormonal signals, whether it is estrogen or testosterone, by the way, for collagen production, elastin production. Elastin, I would argue, is more important than collagen because elastin provides elasticity for the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what we talk about as far as like laxity and things like that are driven mainly from elastin. That's number one. But on a deeper level, what is really interesting is what we call the 12 hallmarks of aging, which are, you know, if you twisted my arm, I would tell you that there are way more than 12. And when the research around hallmarks of aging started, they were talking about nine. So every time we add a few more, but these are areas where our cells start to mess up as we age. Anything from our mitochondria. So our mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Mm-hmm.
So if we talk about athletic performance, that's kind of easy to understand how, less energy begets less performance, right? Or poorer performance. But in our skin, very similar things happen. Like when we think of skin aging, it's just the accumulation of unrepaired damage. So anytime that our skin doesn't have enough energy, doesn't have enough nutrients, doesn't have enough power output that it can respond to damage happening, that's accumulated damage. And so our mitochondria is number one. Another thing that's very interesting is our DNA is damage to the DNA or DNA basically alterations. So if you can think, a lot of people have heard the idea of, oh, we produce 1% less collagen every year, but like why? Like what? What's the code that's embedded in us to do that. So what happens actually is that the genes that are responsible for collagen production are just becoming less readable by our body. They get corrupted,
Yeah.
and and the, basically the inability to read those genes very clearly is what kind of drives the lack of collagen. We also produce proteins, another hallmarks of aging, hallmark of aging. We actually produce proteins in general less well. We mess up producing proteins like collagen and elastin. We have a hard time clearing out debris. Autophagy is a big factor in renewal. You might think, hey, I'd like to create collagen, whether it is poor or not, or whether, I create junk along the way, let me create more collagen. But your body will actually not create collagen very well if it cannot recycle the malfunctioning cellular parts. And that's where autophagy comes in. So autophagy, I would
Mhm.
argue, is maybe the most important thing out
Mm.
of everything. So we can go down the list, but there are 12 reasons why our skin or any cell in our body really starts to mess up along the road. I think a lot of people have heard, for example, about senescent cells or zombie cells, which are,
Mhm.
cells that are, well, I call it they're in house arrest. So these are cells that your body didn't only lose the information on how to actually make them function correctly, but they don't even have the information on how to kill them off or how to, you know,
Mm.
allow them to die. So there is a kind of a middle ground where the body says, okay, you stay in the corner here and just don't do anything that I wouldn't do, right? Or don't do anything bad. But the problem is that as human beings, we live on inertia.
Mm.
Life is built on inertia. If inertia stops, we die and we cannot come back to life. No one has figured out a way to reinvigorate a dead body, that I know. So any cell that's still living is living within that inertia, and even senescent cells, they want to do something. They have a drive to do something, but they are completely corrupt. So all they do is create inflammation.
Mhm.
So senescent cells, inflammaging, which is which is
Yep.
basically low-grade chronic inflammation that is propagated in the body. All of those things really mess up our skin. And there is a way to tackle each hallmark individually, but it becomes a more and more complex tasks as things kind of move along and become more malfunctioning.
Yeah, I think going back to the mitochondria, I've been speaking to that function and getting new mitochondria biogenesis and getting rid of the old ones in regards to energy metabolism in the muscle for exercise.
Yes.
But how would you explain the role of the mitochondria in energy in relationship to skin health? People, I don't think of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So as mitochondria is very interesting. And I'll just explain the relationship maybe in the beginning, and then we can talk about actual mitochondria. And so first, why is that important? So mitochondria really allows our cells to perform, period. So for example, I don't know if people are aware, but saying something like skin cells is very general because there are many types of cells. One of them, for example, is fibroblast. It's the cell that is responsible for creating collagen and elastin, among a few other things like hyaluronic acid. So if that cell doesn't have enough energy, it's not going to create those building blocks for healthy skin or for skin that appears younger. And we rely on the mitochondria to do that. We rely on the mitochondria even to create nitric or to release nitric oxide in order for our skin to have the ability to, or for the blood vessels to have the ability to expand and get more blood to the skin, which carries with it nutrients and oxygen. That's like, maybe more general things, but I'll tell you something interesting about the mitochondria and skin appearance in specifically. There is something called autoluminescence, and
Mm,
autoluminescence is our expulsion of near infrared or
okay.
infrared in general.
Hmm.
And um, this can be measured, and that's a function of ATP production in the mitochondria. So the more ATP we make, the more function of it is more infrared radiation we emit. And obviously, like, being coming from a military background, that's one of the easiest ways to recognize it, to see something at night is through infrared.
Mm.
Um, by the way, it's not like in the movies. You can't see through walls, but you know.
Well,
Um,
I'm picturing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I live in San Diego and there was just the luminescence at nighttime. The waves would have blue light coming from them from bacteria in the water. I think
yeah,
what it is, but that's what I think of luminescence. So that's
yeah,
the near
yeah, yeah,
infrared
yeah.
on the skin. How's that something similar?
So what's cool is that we can't really see most of infrared, or we have a hard time seeing it, but
Mhm.
we see a little bit of it. And so if you have a red light therapy panel, you'll see that some light bulbs, LED bulbs, they look like they're not really functioning. But if you look at them very well, there's a little bit of light there. It's actually very strong, but you can see very little of it. That's near infrared. And when we emit that infrared from our skin, that is called glow. So when you see someone that's more glowing, their skin looks more vibrant, more healthy, more alive, that's a function of that infrared autoluminescence. And when you see someone that their skin is very dull, kind of, looks very kind of empty, in other words, people would describe it, that is lack of autoluminescence.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
So the mitochondria, going back to that, the we keep talking about energy metabolism, metabolism at rest and during exercise in the role of mitochondria, but NAD always comes up to create energy metabolism. To create ATP, we need NAD.
Yeah.
And talk about how that is connected to your skin health because of your role of NAD, the role of NAD in your talking about in your
Yeah.
skin products.
NAD is very interesting, and within the mitochondria, what we thought for about 100 years. So NAD was discovered in the very early 1900s, and the Nobel Prize for that discovery was in the 1920s. So up until like the late 90s, what we thought is that NAD is only that coenzyme that facilitates energy production in the mitochondria. But basically, it is a um, electron. It allows the transference of electrons in the mitochondria and basically creating energy. And that is so. What we knew for forever is that energy NAD lowers with age. Your body NAD, even though you can get it from natural food sources, it is a function of vitamin B3, like niacin, niacinamide, etc. It is very hard to come by and very poorly, as far as like bioavailability, not great. Most vitamin B3 versions are not very bioavailable for our body as a whole. So your body relies on recycling NAD. And as we've spoken before, what we said before is that we're not great or we actually are incredible at maintaining something over time. I mean, cars don't survive as long as we do. So, and obviously we can't go to the garage to fix what's broken, right? So, um, but our body with age just makes mistakes and the reservoir of NAD lowers. And that means we are unable to create as much energy, or the creation of energy costs more energy, in other words. But also, what we've learned in the last 20-ish, 20, 30 years is that NAD has other roles, critical roles it plays that are not specific to the mitochondria. So there are 600-ish repair processes that are what we call NAD plus minus dependent. It means if there is enough NAD, they are happening. And if there isn't, they are not. So there are 17 different enzymes in your DNA, the DNA repair enzymes that are relying on NAD. That's irrelevant as far as like mitochondrial function. I mentioned before those collagen genes, etc. So what happens as we grow older is that we start to naturally lose the ability to decipher DNA well. So parts of the DNA that are supposed to function turn off slowly, and parts that are supposed to be turned off are turned on. It is the job of enzymes like people might have heard about sirtuins or PARPs. These are genes these are enzymes that are supposed to rewind those mistakes every time they happen, and they rely on NAD. What happens in the skin is very interesting because the skin, as I've mentioned before, there are two types of aging. There is intrinsic aging, which you could think of as normal aging that happens in our body. You look at your ID and you can infer the pace of intrinsic aging by your age. And there's something extrinsic aging, what the environment does in order to expedite or even slow down our aging, right? Do we smoke? Do we eat McDonald's? Or do we live off of the best diet? I don't want to get into that, but the best diet that our body should have in order to stave off aging. So your skin is aging. 80% of skin aging is due to extrinsic aging. UV radiation, EMF pollution, heavy metals, glyphosates, artificial blue light. All of those, again, passive smoking, right? All of those things really accelerate skin aging, and they damage the DNA. And what do we need in order to correct those mistakes? We need NAD. So our skin is starved of NAD. So 20% classically we are lacking NAD just from intrinsic aging, but now we have another fivefold demand or loss of NAD or demand for NAD due to those extrinsic factors. And I'll give an example. Sirtuins, who are responsible for the correction of those DNA mistakes, are not are chronically deficient in NAD in the skin, chronically deficient in everyone that's listening to this. So we have to find a way to raise NAD levels in the skin if we want to have any change that is fundamental in our skin, because we can look at every strategy to kind of rewind time that would be optical, right? We can do fillers, we can do Botox, we can do lasers, we can do peels, retinols, anything that, I mentioned things that really optically just augment how the skin looks like. But I also mentioned things that stimulate more repair. But still, if we stimulate more repair, we are still now reliant on how our skin responds to that stimulation, exactly like exercise, right? It's not, the famous trope is that you don't grow your muscles in the gym. You grow them when you sleep, right?
True.
Exactly the same thing. We respond to stimuli in a way that would improve or actually accelerate skin aging. Now we need to identify the molecules that we need to enrich our skin with in order to reap, either stave off aging if we're not doing anything, or reap the benefits of any stimuli that we are applying on the skin.
So many interesting things. I've been curious. You said something about extrinsic factors on our skin health, but the damage of blue light. And I used to run a fitness studio full time, training people all day. Since 2020, I worked more remote and being a practitioner online. Computer time has increased. And I'm always curious if working on a computer how that's impacting my skin health. Is there, so you're saying there's correlation to the blue light includes not just your iPhone, your phones, devices, computer screens, TVs can cause skin aging?
Yeah, and it actually goes back to the mitochondria. So it is as detrimental to mitochondrial function as red light therapy is beneficial to mitochondrial function.
So we're getting blue light damage, so we can help that by doing more red light
We could,
time.
but if you are, 4 hours on average in front of a computer, like, you couldn't really offset that with red light. We can definitely do things that would, mitigate a lot of the damage of blue lights. Again, going back to specific ingredients, the main one would be an ingredient called ectoin, which is an incredible molecule that's gaining traction. Another one is ergothioneine,
Mm.
which is an antioxidant. It's an amino acid that's antioxidative. These two are probably the big hardest hitting players, but also a form of vitamin C if you sprayed it every couple of hours on your skin, which is called magnesium ascorbyl phosphate.
Mm.
So vitamin C is great at two things. It's great at supporting collagen production because it's a coenzyme for collagen. So you make collagen 10 times better with vitamin C than you do without. And the second thing is staving off the damage that UV and blue light cause to the skin. The problem with vitamin C is how fast, it kind of degrades. Uh, L-ascorbic acid, which is the synthetic version of vitamin C, is not effective in any. For collagen benefits, we need fat-soluble vitamin C because we need it to penetrate our fatty layer that protects our skin. The best version is THDA, but to protect our skin, we actually want it to stay on the surface. We actually don't want it to absorb. And that is where magnesium ascorbyl phosphate, which is water-soluble vitamin C, comes in. Normally, you'll see MAP,
Mm.
vitamin C. This is the best version of a anti-blue light product. If you were wondering how it translates to like an SPF, it would be graded as an SPF 4, not 40, 4. But for blue light, it's actually very effective. Yeah.
Great. So with that, another thought was on swimming for us people that swim in a pool. I swim in an outdoor pool. What about the damage of your skin from the chemicals if it's salt water or chlorine? Would that impact your aging of your skin with the damage of swim chemicals, you think?
Yes. 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 First of all, you are exposed to chemicals that are in the water in the pool, but they are normally, to a very large extent, they are not again, because they're water soluble for the most part, they don't absorb that well into the skin. So you need a long period of kind of pool time for them to absorb. Um, and you could mitigate it by a few things. So first of all, NAD is a good way to kind of help our skin deal with these toxins. Another one is resveratrol, and spermidine. Spermidine is a fasting mimicking molecule, and if we apply it topically, it creates that autophagy, that recycling of basically the detoxification, the cleansing of our cells. So that's very important for swimmers. Aside from that, taking methylene blue when you swim is actually pretty important. Not applying it on the skin, you're going to look a little bit like a Smurf, but taking it orally actually has crazy bioavailability. It's like 96% bioavailable. And yeah, take it orally.
So would you stack that with a sauna treatment or, you know, add any cold facial plunge with that hot cold for skin health?
Not necessarily. But aside from being in the pool, like kind of unrelated to the pool,
Mhm.
um, yes, I would. So sauna is actually very interesting as far as like skin health because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to um, allow our skin to hold on to as much moisture as possible. So as long as we're hydrated and etc., sauna can be a great thing because we're activating some of those defense mechanisms. Um, if you want to do one better, you could use products that have what are called photosomes. Photosomes are DNA repair enzymes that are activated by infrared. And we use them in a product called Ladder, which is brand new. It like just came out. But we're not the only company using them. We're probably the ones that have the highest percentage of them. But this is a pretty expensive product. So I'd urge people to, spend what they can. But this is
Yeah.
actually really good with sauna because they get activated by that. You could also go outside and activate them in the sun, but not to the same extent. Or, red light panel will do the same. Um, as far as like facial cold plunge, that is not something that would provide any long-term benefits. It might depuff a face that is holding on to water, but what we really want is our liver to release heat shock proteins or cold shock
Mm.
proteins, heat shock proteins. They're interchangeable, HSPs. And for that, we need core temperature reduction. So to put your face in cold water is cool, no pun intended, but it wouldn't do anything like long term for our skin. I would say if people have skin barrier issues, it might do the contrary. So I'm
Mm.
not a, I'm not convinced. I would love to. I'd love any. I'd love to sound smart talking about anything. So if there is evidence in favor in the future, sure,
Yeah.
I'll be screaming off the rooftop about it. But for now, there's no evidence.
Good. And then go back to what you mentioned before, oxidative stress. I keep going into different rabbit hole videos on my channel talking about oxidative stress. And for our audience that are athletes, trying to get them to understand you need to be fit and healthy from the inside out, that more exercise often equals more oxidative stress. And as we age, we have less antioxidant production that we're mismanaging our oxidative stress, I guess. And so how oxidative stress can impact our skin health aging process, which
So
seems to
oxidative
show up.
stress. So what we really did right now is like go up a level or up the downstream events. So you can think of a river and you can think of everything upstream, obviously affecting everything downstream, right? Oxidative stress is really, really upstream because it acts on or it affects basically all of our other everything we spoke about until now related to aging. So like, we talked about blue light or sun damage or EMF. They are not, they are a story that we tell. But in our skin, what our skin experiences is oxidative stress. Okay, like at the end of the day, everything is translated as far as like damage to oxidative stress. Um, so it is at the root of everything. The question is, what do we do to mitigate oxidative stress? And what do we do to harness oxidative stress? Because oxidative stress is not necessarily always bad. Okay. We just need to understand how to respond to it. An oxidative stress that was not responded to is the one that we should worry about. So oxidative stress is basically a butterfly wing flap effect. Okay, whatever it's called, the butterfly effect. Okay, we have a molecule that's unstable, oxygen molecule that's unstable. It tries to stabilize itself and it attaches to another molecule that could stabilize itself. It wants basically to steal an electron. But what we're doing is we're creating a cascade that then, deprives, destabilizes other molecules. And that creates instability. The first thing we need to do is to take care of our antioxidant defense. That's why I mentioned things like, ergothioneine or ectoine or resveratrol, which are all very good fighters against oxidative stress. Another one is called LPC6. It's a cousin of C60. I don't know if you've talked about C60 on your podcast, but it's a cousin of C60. And that is a very, very strong antioxidant that is it is only in skincare, really. And is lipid based. Remember, we want kind of both, right? We want both. We want ones that stay on the surface and one that can go deeper.
Mhm.
Um, so first, again, we need to kind of address that oxidative load because it drives all the other hallmarks of aging, drives inflammation, drives, genomic instability, drives our inability to sense nutrients, even like everything, when we spoke about senescent cells and the damage they cause, they create oxidative or they create inflammation, which in turn creates more oxidative stress. Um, that's number one. Number two, we need to understand that our body can recognize, as long as our body has a good mechanism to deal with oxidative stress, our body can recognize oxidative stress and actually ramp up its own oxidative defense mechanisms. So, infrared sauna, there's something that's called the triangle of reactive oxygen species when we talk about infrared sauna, where we're actually increasing oxidative stress momentarily when we're in an infrared sauna, which then our body, the same way, exactly like temperature, our body then goes ahead and ramps up its own antioxidant defenses, and we're able to reap the benefits there. So it's not all bad. Infrared light or red light therapy increases oxidative stress as well. And in the same manner, our body is able to go ahead and activate mechanisms that are actually beneficial. I don't know if you've talked about the kind of this master switch of inflammation that is called
Mhm.
NF-kappa beta.
A
But
little bit, but
NF,
yeah, talk about that.
so NF-kappa beta is exactly as it sounds. It is a gene transcription ability factor that is responsible for a cascade of like responses that are anti-inflammatory in nature. Okay. And by releasing a very manageable form of oxidative stress from the mitochondria, when we are exposing it to red light therapy, we can actually trick NF-kappa beta and activate it, and therefore create an anti-inflammatory response in our body. So in general, we want to take care of oxidative stress, but mechanistically, when we look at different things that may cause oxidative stress, we cannot villainize them and say, oh, if there is some oxidative stress there, this is negative. By the way, you want to talk about something that generates a lot of oxidative stress, it would be a hyperbaric chamber.
Mm,
So, because more oxygen means more
yeah.
oxidative stress.
Hmm.
So, in general, if it's manageable, if we have a good, healthy, robust ability to tackle oxidative load, we can we can respond well to it and actually reap benefits.
Mm.
One supplement that I've been playing with, very hard to understand if it's working or not, but it should, is something called glycidin, maybe purchased on Amazon, and I have no relation to it whatsoever. But glycidin is actually is a complex that has within it something called SOD.
Mm.
And SOD is our own enzyme that tackles oxidative stress. Unfortunately, if we just try to take SOD alone, our body won't be able to manage it very well. And that is why they came up with a version that actually can survive your digestive tract and propagate in the body. There is a product from a company called NIOD, which is the kind of higher end brand of The Ordinary. that has SOD in a face mist. But since I'm still on the fence, again, it needs some, it can't survive that well. So it needs some
Mm.
mechanisms to survive well. We've looked extensively into integrating it into products. So if someone is like an SOD fanatic, and they want to try a product, it's their only face mist, go for it. I'm not convinced. The
Yeah.
best evidence that I have that I'm not convinced in something, it's not in our products. So when
Mm.
if I thought it would be a good idea, we would have it there.
So let's talk about an ideal skincare routine. If we're trying to improve the aging process and we're concerned about skin health and showing aging, signs of aging, where should we start?
Okay, that is so. I'm going to give a broad strokes approach. We should clean our face at least once a day. Wash our face with a cleanser and water. You could do it twice a day, but many people, especially if they want to maintain a good skin barrier in the morning, they're just going to just wash it with water. They're not going to use a cleanser. So at least at night, use a cleanser. The serum aspect of a routine would be what gives the direction to the routine. Okay. At Young Goose, that's what we have, like maybe two different moisturizers, but we have like, eight different serums. And that is because that's how you kind of personalize your journey. You're saying, hey, what matters to me is, pigmentation and wrinkles, laxity. So there are serums that are going to be more dialed towards that. Okay. Um, then a moisturizer would be not only a moisturizer has many different aspects, but I think the main aspect is to make sure that our skin does not lose moisture. Many people think that you imbue uh, moisture onto the skin, but actually, moisture comes from within, and I'm sure you'd be glad to hear that because that's your whole credo. What we cannot really enrich the skin with moisture. We cannot. What we can do is offset the balance on the surface of our skin of hydration. It means we're going to lose less hydration to the environment. If anyone lives like in a more humid climate, they're going to go to Vegas. Immediately, they're going to have chapped lips, and the reason is the balance changed, and we lose more moisture to the environment. This is called transepidermal water loss. So the idea with the moisturizer is to offset that balance, basically. Okay. That's why, there are molecules like hyaluronic acid, which are sold as this something hydrating, and they're not really hydrating on a cellular level. They might do other things that are positive, but they're not hydrating. So that's the first thing that a moisturizer should do. But then also we can use ingredients that are longevity, important for longevity on a more superficial level. We now know that a lot of our immune responses, a youthful immune system is a huge part of anti-aging. And we now know that both our microbiome and our immune system are tied to our skin barrier. So that should be something that we take into consideration as well. That's why an anti-aging moisturizer is actually something quite important. Maybe not as important as the serum that you are choosing, but it is very important. And then the last step in the morning would be sunblock.
Mm.
If someone, it's a huge discussion. If someone is follows their guru says, hey, never use sunblock or whatever, I respect that. I respect that. You could do a few things like use DNA repair enzymes that are activated by red light to repair some of the UV damage. You could use resveratrol. Resveratrol is the closest we have to our own bodies, a bit, what our body uses to combat UV damage. But if you are interested in staving off skin aging, there is no argument there.
Mm.
UV damage accelerates skin aging. If you are interested, if you don't want that to happen, sunblock. Use a mineral one, don't use a chemical one. You make sure that it is combined with an antioxidant. It doubles the effectiveness of sunblock.
Mm.
Okay. Um, and obviously, what we did at Young Goose is like we said, yes, we are designed as human beings to be 70% of our waking time outdoors. Yes, that's true. But in reality, we're 95% of the time indoors. So your sunblock should behave as such. It shouldn't only protect you from the sun, it should protect you from everything that we've covered before. EMF, pollution, heavy metals, artificial blue light, all of those things are very prevalent indoors. Therefore, we developed a sunblock, I'm sorry, that is not, the sunblock is maybe like a side note. It is we call it bio shield because it protects against all of those other
Right.
aggressors. So, so people use it, when they go on an airplane because there is huge, elevation in radiation. So that's kind of your morning routine. Wash your face, use your serum, moisturizer, and sunblock. In the evening, you could just, use a serum. You could use a different serum that is more geared towards stimulation of renewal because like we talked about in exercise, we renew at night more than during the day. So a retinol-based product would be great. Um, if you're not a fan of retinol, uh, GHKCU copper peptides, um, um, spermidine are the two ingredients you want to look for. And um, but what is really cool is that you can do something called slugging. Have you ever heard about slugging?
No.
Slugging is originally it's with petroleum jelly. Originally, the term was built around petroleum jelly.
Mhm.
And the reason is kind of what I said before. It is the ultimate occlusive. It's the ultimate kind of barrier that nothing will leave the skin. And at night, it's actually so if you think of let's say someone had a scar and they put silicone patch on the scar. That's what it does. It kind of doesn't let anything leave the skin. And with the time, it can improve scar because the skin behaves really well under those conditions, especially at night. Um, so slugging is at its core that with petroleum jelly. You could definitely do that. But there are products today in the market that take this idea and use it to also embed or absorb active ingredients into the skin. So we do it with a product called hyperbaric mask.
Mhm.
It's a cult product. People think that we have crack there or whatever because they get addicted. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's slugging with benefits. You
That's
apply it
very
over
cool.
you apply it over your moisturizer, and we have their enzymes that improve mitochondrial function and things that activate your sirtuins, your things that repair DNA, growth factors, things like that. The idea, though, is to try and mimic the effects of being in a hyperbaric chamber while
Mm.
you're sleeping.
Sleeping. So while
Yeah,
at
with
night, your cellular repair is happening inside as
yeah,
well. And so you're adding that to create
yeah,
most.
yeah.
That's funny. My grandmother used to go to sleep with Vaseline all over her face. So
She was
back in
slugging.
the back in the day, they were slugging before they knew it.
Yeah,
Not with toxic. So can I share your website information here? Let's walk
yeah,
through some of the things. So if we share my screen, I just find all this interesting because I always said your skin is a mouth, but we're also looking at what's not functioning, what we're not making enough of as we
yeah,
age and we have more of the oxidative stress. We're talking about and less NAD production. So you
yeah,
have NAD in the products, or NAD boosters and spermidine.
yeah,
Is that compare that to there's NADs everywhere as injections, IVs,
yeah,
capsules. How does this change an ingredient and how that works
yeah.
on your
So,
skin?
so this is a great question, and I think most people don't realize how the preferential treatment of NAD actually works. And f first of all, NAD is a molecule that your body does not recognize as a usable molecule when it travels throughout the body. So your body actually breaks it down. The body is like, what is that? Translates it to its precursors, what we call boosters, to make it, more kind of layman terms. But these are precursors. Precursors are building blocks of the molecule that only exists as a positive molecule in our cell. So outside of the cells, the body prefers using the precursors. Now, what the body has are highways and enzymes that are meant to deal with those precursors. Organs that have more of those are going to get preferentially more NAD. For example, your liver, your brain, your heart, they will get preferentially more NAD because of that. And we can, hypothesize why, or, lament our skin's, misfortune. But at the end of the day, this is where, if you're going to, especially if you supplement, but also if you inject, also if you do an IV drip, that's where most of them are going to go.
Mm.
That is why, and as I said, our skin is chronically starved of NAD, chronically, because of those extrinsic factors. So we have to have NAD applied topically because the amount you're going to get if you're going to do any type of other intervention is minuscule, and because your skin actually needs a lot of it.
Mm. Yeah, so this is on the screen. These are the
Yeah.
ingredients in a lot of your products or a specific product.
So a lot of the products are going to have a lot of those ingredients.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do within a full regimen. So you see, like you have like your routine finder there, and we also have like a routine builder. Routine finder is like how you figure out what products you need. Routine builder, if you do know what products you need,
Mm.
you can kind of put them in categories and get a better deal on them. But
Yeah.
um,
Mm.
what if you were to go through a full routine of Young Goose, you're going to have all of those molecules. If you
Okay.
want like heavy hitters, products that have the word youth attached to it's like you and then th, it's a play on words. um our products are going to have all of those or most of those ingredients, whether it is like NAD precursors, spermidine, ergothioneine, senolytics to some extent. Senescent cells respond best to undulation, to things that you actually you don't want to have them a little bit in a lot of products. You want to kind of have one product that targets them specifically. So we have a serum that's called ProCare that specifically targets senescent cells, but spermidine as well is something that targets senescent cells. So you could do that either of that. But like yeah, the enzymes, advanced peptides, all of those are going to be in youth products and sprinkled throughout our other products. So if you have a full routine, we're supplying all of those in the best fashion.
Okay. The peptides, since peptides are so big right now, too, more
Yeah.
and more research is coming out. You said is it GKH or what?
GHKCU.
So
GHKCU
talk
is
about
copper
that role,
peptide.
copper peptide.
So
Yeah, to explain
co
that.
copper peptide is interesting because copper peptide is a bio. It's a bioregulator. It means it's three amino acids long. It's very 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 small. It can penetrate into the skin hypothetically. I'm going to explain it hypothetically. And it can boost it is the a code that your skin uses to signal repair and rejuvenation. So again, anything from, by the way, antioxidant defense to
Hmm.
collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid production, all of those we can stimulate with GHKCU copper peptide.
Mm.
The problem is in peptides in general, peptides need peptides have a word that you use in peptides is something called affinity. It's like how much do they like the environment they're in, and how much will they stick around until they find the dock for them to dock in. Okay.
Mm.
And although there is pretty good research around GHKCU, there's not good research in formulation with GHKCU. So most companies just take a powder and just mix it into their product. I would be flabbergasted if any of them worked, especially over time. What we do in order to make sure that there is high affinity is we actually mix it with other peptides that prepare the area in different ways. mainly neuronally, so they're neuropeptides, in order for peptides kind of stick around and dock where they need to dock and affect the skin in a certain way. So I know peptides is an incredible buzzword, but within skincare, it's a real buzzword. Like you really need to be satisfied with an answer as far as like how do they work with the
Hmm.
specific product and with the skin,
Mm.
and see some evidence in order to understand that this is something you want to invest money in.
So before I leave the page, if you're getting heading to the website the first time, you
Yeah.
want to start with Routine Finder.
Yeah, I would say routine finder. You can do a few things, but either like routine finder, do like you go to one of the systems like you just did.
Hmm.
This is really good. Like find your match. You fill up a very, very, very simple questionnaire. Like I remember um just before pure encapsulations got bought by Nestle, I had like 50% off for pure encapsulations.
I didn't know
But in
they
order
got
to
bought
get,
by Nestle, really? I
oh
missed that
yeah,
one.
Nestle owns pure encapsulations. They own Mito Pure. They own
Mm.
NRH, which is an NAD precursor that you'll hear about. Like it's the second coming of Christ, but it's just because they invest a lot of money to promote it. They are big spenders, yeah. Um, so but the problem is to get 50% off, I needed to spend a questionnaire kind of replying it to my what I want to achieve, etc. And I think 8 minutes in, I just gave up. I was like, I'm just gonna pay full price. I know what I want. Leave me alone. So uh our quiz is super, super basic, super simple, just making sure we can direct you in the right direction.
So
Um,
we'll put that
yeah.
in the show notes. Okay.
And then it'll tell you which kit. Will give you options. So you know, one of the things obviously that we're trying to do is cater to every or most budgets, right? So it'll allow you to choose a system that is within your budget.
Hmm.
Um and yeah,
Okay.
products last a pretty long time. They last 2 to 3 months.
How about
So
wrinkles? Just kidding.
yeah, you can shop by concern, and you will see products that address that concern. And again, let's say you have a routine. You know, a lot of people, when they find out about Young Goose, it's not the first skincare company they've heard about, and it's not the first skincare they've purchased. So they need to go through their cleanser, and they need to go through their moisturizer, and they need to go through their eye cream. You know, but
Mhm.
they want to start with something. So going through a concern, and even if you click a specific product, let's say you click, ProCare or Bioretinol, whatever, or eye care, you'll see like a grade. Oh, it tackles, if you scroll down a little bit, it'll tackle hydration only 40%. It's like not great at increasing hydration. But if dullness or pigmentation or wrinkles is something you care about, it's like 95% to 100%
Mhm.
effectiveness. So that's like a really good product for that, right? Another product's going to be more tailored towards hydration and less towards other things. So you'll also see, what product is good for you as far as like you're concerned.
Mhm. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, great. So I'll put all the links in the show notes. One last question that was had written down that I'm curious about to finish with, but your skin and your brain, because not only working on skin health and gut health, but really avoiding cognitive decline and working on brain health and focusing actually this year on the podcast on that topic. So anything skin brain connection, talk about that before we wrap up.
Well, that's a really good question because there are a series of studies that came out of Portugal, out of the University of Lisbon, if I'm not mistaken, that are called the skin as a driver. Skin as a driver of overall aging. I think it's called of whole body aging. And what they show is that the accumulation of senescent cells in the skin, along with other some hallmarks of aging, actually, because as I said I alluded to this before, the skin is not only a communication organ outwards to show that we are sexually viable, but also inward. It relays information from the environment to our brain, especially stressors. And why is that important? It's because it has a direct communication with the stress center in our brain that's called the HPA axis,
Mhm.
hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And those, inflammatory signals that senescent cells send together again with other things that are growing and creating inflammation, they hijack that skin brain axis and they actually inflame and stress out the HPA axis, which in turn inflames and stresses the rest of your body and increases or exacerbates aging or accelerates aging. So, and also, contribute to cognitive decline, brain fog, etc. So, if you are not a vain person, you don't care about your skin whatsoever. That's not what you care about. My mother is one of those. Okay, my mother could not care less. But when I explained that to her, because all she cares about is not to get Alzheimer's like her stepdad,
Mhm.
um, she, uses products like she asked me every product we come out is like, oh, does that take care of that HPA access? Okay, so, you know, yeah,
I think that's important as I started the show that I'm watching my mom and
yeah,
her friends all age and what's happening to everyone. And it is that fear of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia more than the wrinkles. So I can understand your
yeah,
mom's fear. It's like, whatever, wrinkles are going to happen attitude versus I don't want to have that happen to me. The memory part.
yeah,
That's happening
yeah,
all the time. That's why I want to focus on it. But that's an interesting correlation. So thanks for sharing that.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put all the links in the show notes, but tell us where people can find out more about you and your podcasts and your products and your
Yeah. So, younggoose.com is kind of what you all were also looking at. And Young Goose on Instagram is
Mhm.
pretty informative. I obviously we have a podcast called Biohacking Beauty where we sometimes, focus on things that are more, intuitive eating, which would be less about your skin, but you'd be surprised how it affects it.
Mm.
And other times we go extremely deeply, whether we just had like Hannah Went from True Diagnostic,
Mhm.
or I
Yeah.
recorded a podcast about a lot of the hallmark, like legit on the hallmarks of aging and how they drive skin aging. So if someone is interested in a real deep dive into skin health and longevity, Biohacking Beauty Podcast is the name. And yeah, if that's what you were interested in, you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, no, that's all about me. Personally, that's what I'm focused on is doing whatever I can do now.
Yeah.
So I am
Well,
feeling my
your skin
best.
looks fantastic. Whatever you've been doing recently works.
Well, it has your products on it, and I've been doing my red light, my sauna. I'm trying to.
Incredible.
It's a lot of work, I start my
Yeah.
day and end the day. The stacks that we do. That's why I was looking at okay, what can I do when I have the face mask on and do red light therapy to enhance the process, and what can I do while I'm in the sauna to enhance that process before and after the sauna. It's really figuring out that stacking word
So
comes in
I
handy.
take a look at Ladder, the new serum we came out with. It's
Mm.
we've been getting some random people sending us before and afters, and it's incredible.
Ooh. To do with the
Yeah.
red light mask or which
Yes, red light
set?
mask, sauna, infrared sauna,
Mm.
um, yeah, red light panels, whatever type of like red near infrared light you can expose your skin to while having that serum on is incredible.
I'll have to try that because we have a Sunlighten sauna, which has the near infrared wavelengths, mid and far. So I think that would be great to do one of they have a skin health
Yeah,
protocol. So it'd be good to stack that together.
yeah,
Amazing. So thanks so much for your information. And I love that you just keep deep dive as I love to go down rabbit holes and figure out the why and how
yeah.
things work and explain that on your channel and put that into your products. So
My pleasure.
good for us. Keep it up.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.